Hello, you're watching the Best Football Show with your host, me, Adam Noon. A special transfer deadline day update as we go through the top 5 transfers in the January transfer window to clubs in the Premier League, biggest league in the world. And here's my expert analysis as someone who, like you if you're watching this, really thinks a lot about world football and really isn't interested in kind of scratching the surface. You kind of what I call an armchair fan. I like to look into things in a bit more detail, but as you'll see as we go through. I'm going to start off. Fifth most expensive transfer was a player called Lucas Moura, exotic Brazilian player, who joined Tottenham Hotspur from PSG for a fee believed to be in the region of £25 million. It's a signing that doesn't work for me necessarily. I'm not convinced he's the sort of player that Tottenham need, and in this climate I don't know whether 25 million represents good value. For me, a player that Tottenham could have considered was in fact a player that they would be very familiar with, a player that used to play for them, and that would be Aaron Lennon. This is a guy with bags of pace, has proven Premier League experience, England caps, a good number of England caps, and as well would presumably be familiar with the training ground and the stadium, albeit when they go back to White Hart Lane, because they're currently playing at Wembley, the home of football. So for me, this is a miss on the Lucas Moura transfer, but time will tell. But it'll be interesting to see whether Aaron Lennon proves to be the better signing, as he went to Burnley. Then the expensive signing that was more expensive than Lucas Moura is a guy called Cenk Tosun, which sounds Turkish, I think. I've seen pictures of this guy. He looks like he looks a lot like you'd expect a guy called Cenk Tosun to look. He's quite a big guy. But again, a big worry for me. I mean, if I had to call this one, I'm going to have to call this one out as a miss. You have to think that, again, it's a lot of money for a player that nobody's ever heard of, never done anything. And, I think really if Everton were looking for a big striker, I don't think they could have done much worse than to have signed Andy Carroll. Andy Carroll, the West Ham player, who we've seen score goals with his head, goals with his left foot, goals, all sorts of goals, but a really classic ball striker, a classic number 9. Someone who can hold the ball up, bring someone in, but also score goals himself. I think this is going to turn out to be a miss, and I think that come the end of the season, I think Everton could be in real trouble, and I think that wouldn't have been the case had they have signed Andy Carroll. Then the next one is Aymeric Laporte. Aymeric Laporte, who has gone to Manchester City for £57 million. This guy's a French guy. French, of course, renowned for their defences, of course, won the World Cup in 1998 with such legends as Laurent Blanc and Frank Leboeuf. But this guy, when you look, it turns out hasn't even played for France. Again, someone that I'd never heard of. I don't think many people will have heard of. And I've read that supposedly he likes to pass the ball, which is all well and good, but I think they're really going to regret someone who lacks a physical presence, which is so important in the Premier League. But if they wanted someone who is a strong physical presence but can also pass proficiently, I think they could have done worse than to have gone for Manchester United's Chris Smalling, who's a player that I really rate, a player that I think is very underrated in world football overall. Another player like Aaron Lennon and in fact Andy Carroll, who's got a significant number of England caps, good England experience. I think he really could have come in and done a job next to John Stones, and they could have been the future of English defending together at club and country level. So I think we're going to have to chalk that one up as a miss for Man City. I think come the end of the season, I think we all know that they've got the league sewn up this season, but the question will be, will they do well next season without Chris Smalling? But only time will tell. Then the penultimate, the number 2 most expensive signing was Pierre Emerick. It's a similar name to Aymeric Laporte, the last guy, but this is Emerick, not Aymeric. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Says here he's from Gabon. He signed from Borussia Dortmund. Again, I mean, people will be aware of this guy. He plays for Borussia Dortmund, probably the biggest club in Germany, one of the biggest clubs in Germany, and looks like he scored a lot of goals. Quick, pacey striker. But again, advancing in years, no Premier League experience from what I could see on Wikipedia. Never played in the Premier League. Doesn't even look like he's played in England. And I think for me, really, if Arsenal were looking for a player that could have provided that pace, provided that nous, I think they could have looked at a player that they'd looked at previously, who is Jamie Vardy, Leicester's Jamie Vardy. A player with pace and power. And again, England caps, England experience, knows the league. He'd know the players from watching Match of the Day and reading Shoot magazine. I think, and as well, you know, they've got players, Mesut Ozil, who everyone in the world would know. I think Vardy would have loved playing next to Ozil. I think Ozil would have loved having Vardy there to rough up players and to run onto through balls. I think it's a big miss for Arsenal that they've not gone for Vardy in place of Aubameyang. And then finally, the most expensive. This might be an eyebrow raiser for some people because this is a player that maybe not the highest profile compared to. I mean, some of these guys are nobodies, but maybe not the. You know, he's not a Lionel Messi. He's not a legend in that bracket, and yet he's commanded the biggest fee in January. This is a guy, Virgil van Dijk, who is a defender. A lot of money usually goes to strikers. Aubameyang, Tosun, strikers. This guy's a defender. He's another centre back. Good. It's a reasonable signing for Liverpool, you think here. Obviously, they've got their big problems at the back. But you have to think, he's got Premier League experience. That's a given. But probably only a few years. And before that, I think he was playing in Scotland. And you think, when there's so many players with such a vast wealth of experience in the Premier League, and I've said someone like Phil Jagielka, I think, would have been a really good signing for Liverpool. I think he brings power, I think he brings nous and a level of pace, and I think that they've really missed a trick by again not signing someone like Phil Jagielka. So I think overall, I think a lot of the clubs are going to really regret how they conducted their transfer business, and I think it could cost people cups and league places. And again, I think, you know, a general rule, I think when you buy English players, I think you know what you're getting, and you're getting quality. So that's that then. Make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe. Thanks to the guys that have already done that so far. We'll be doing these episodes every, you know, as and when something in the world of football happens that's worthy of comment. And you can find us on Twitter at BestFootyShow. And it's thebestfootballshow@gmail.com. Get in touch with the email if you've got any questions. A lot of guys want to hit me up with questions to see my views on things in the world of football. And you can get in touch with me that way. But for now, until I speak to you again, I've been Adam Noon, and this has been The Best Football Show.